There we go. Just broke it loose. I'll just unscrew it a little bit. Got that Dodge Cummins. Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be working on my 2003 Dodge Ram 2500 with the 5.9 Cummins. You can see it right here. This truck has about 204,000 miles on it. And my radiator has cracked. There is a very small crack along here on this side of the radiator. And I did notice that I had to put in coolant every drive or so. So I finally found the coolant leak. I actually put on a brand new OEM radiator cap. The one that was on here was 16 pounds. This one is 17 pounds. So I don't know if just the 1 pound made it leak more, but it did leak more. So anyways, I'm going to be replacing the radiator, but while I have the radiator out, my AC system doesn't have any Freon in it. It all leaked out. So I am also going to be replacing the AC condenser, this right here. This one is, all chewed up. I'm sure everyone's condenser pretty much looks like this. This is the original condenser to this vehicle. So I bought an OEM one, which was pretty pricey, but I like the look of all these being black. So most of the aftermarket ones were aluminum, but anyways, I usually like to go with OEM parts anyways. So I bought a new OEM one. So while I have all this out, I am going to be replacing the AC condenser. I also have a new compressor because the compressor was weak. So I'm going to be replacing the compressor while I have all this out, and a few other AC components. I don't believe I'm going to film any of the AC work on this, but I am going to film everything I need to remove to get the radiator out. I already have a brand new radiator. And also, while I have all this out, of course this is a case of while you're in there, I am going to be replacing the front main seal. You can't see it, but it's behind the crank pulley, so I'm going to have to remove numerous things in this engine to do that. So basically, this video is going to show you how to remove all these things, and while I'm in there, I'm going to be cleaning up things and things of that nature. So let's go ahead and get started by removing the front AC condenser. Now, most of you guys, I realize you will not be completely removing the AC condenser. So basically, in that case, you undo these 4 13mm bolts here on the condenser, and you can see it is connected by these 2 lines right here. I already popped off one of these caps, but it is connected with these 2 AC lines right here. These are a little bit flexible, so what most people do is they move their condenser and put a towel down or something right here on your fender, and then just lay the condenser on right here. Or if you have like a bungee cord or something, you can bungee it to one of the holes right here and hook it up to your hood, and basically just leave it hanging here. Basically, either way you choose to do, I would be very careful with these AC lines, because you do not want to bend these too much. You don't want to crack these or damage them in any way. So just be very careful whichever way you're going to go. As I already said, I'm just going to completely remove my AC condenser. There is no refrigerant in my system. It all leaked out, so just take note of that. So these are, as I said, 13mm bolts. Go ahead and move that out of the way. Alright guys, so next I'm going to remove my air intake. Mine is aftermarket. It's an SMB unit, and I'm going to remove it so I can have extra room, especially to get out the intercooler pipes. So I'm going to undo these couple of clamps and then take off this sensor right here, and then remove the air box right here and just completely remove this out so we can get some room in this engine bay. Alright guys, I forgot to mention that I already removed both of my batteries. You don't have to remove your batteries. You can just disconnect the negative side of the terminals, but make sure you do that before you begin all this work. Anyways, I got my intake out. I have a towel in my turbo over there, you can see. And now I think I'm going to remove this intercooler pipe here. So I'm going to remove it from the turbo over here. It's just this clamp right there. And then I am going to remove it from the actual intercooler, because we will be taking out the intercooler to access the radiator here. All right, so these clamps on the intercooler, these are a 11 millimeter, by the way. Helps if you have a ratcheting wrench. These seem to do a good job of loosening these. So just a little tip there. All right, I have all of my intercooler pipes, all my couplers loosened. So I'm not going to take out the intercooler pipes just yet because I want to take out the intercooler first. So first, I need to remove these bolts right here. Yours may be Torx bolts, but mine are 13 millimeter. So I'm going to unhook both these, or I'll unbolt these two, and then this should just slide right out. All right, guys, look how massive that intercooler is. I just have it sitting here in my garage, and here's my truck right here as it stands. There it is, no intercooler. I went ahead and took out the intercooler pipes. So I'm gonna put some towels, up in here, and just to secure that. So now that gives us some room right here to where we can actually bring the radiator up, because if that pipe was right here, it'd get caught on this little ledge right here. By the way, the intercooler has two little legs that rests on the support beam right here, so it just rests right there, and this is what we're left with. All right, guys, so before we get started, we need to drain the radiator. So you can just come under here. Let's find our little petcock here. So it's going to drain from here. All you need to do is just turn this. Make sure you have a large, probably a 5-gallon bucket would be ideal, but sometimes this can be stubborn. Sometimes these are pretty stuck on there. There we go. Just broke it loose. I'll just unscrew it a little bit.
That almost splattered on me.
What in the world?
Daddy?
Here, we need to
What's
open the
that?
cap. Well, that's a dirt dauber nest. Here, so I'm gonna undo. Oh boy.
Oh.
Oh boy. Yeah, this thing had some pressure in it. We're still recording, all right. Okay, here we go, a second time. So there was a lot of pressure in my system for some reason. I really don't know why. So anyways, we'll just let this drain. This may take a while. There's quite a bit of coolant in this system. All right, guys, the radiator is drained. I did remove my fender well liner and the battery box on this side, just because while I'm doing this job, I am going to be replacing all these AC lines. So there is that. But anyway, next to remove the radiator is we need to remove this upper radiator hose. Alright, now that we have the upper radiator hose removed, now we need to remove this overflow tank. Now it does have one 13 millimeter fastener right there, and before I remove that, I want to undo the overflow tank hose right here. So I'm just going to kind of lightly pry this off of the radiator. We'll just disconnect that, and then we can go at it with that 13 millimeter bolt and try to remove that reservoir. Okay, so now I'm going to remove this windshield washer fluid reservoir. I already undone the two 13mm fasteners. There's one up here, and then there is one right here on this frame right here. So now with the coolant overflow tank out of the way, you can see how close it is to this filler neck, or to this neck on the radiator, so it will make it a lot easier if you remove this. But before we remove this tank, there is a couple of electrical connectors. So I've already undone one. The other one has given me a little bit of trouble. You can see one right there I've already disconnected. Then this other one right there has one of those red tabs on it. This one's a little bit harder to disconnect, but I'm gonna try to get that disconnected, then we can get this reservoir out of the way. All right guys, we have both reservoirs out. Here is that connection. Make sure you pull up this red tab right there before you try to take off this connector. So just make sure this red tab is pulled up. Just kind of take a flathead and get it to move. I actually found that spraying a little bit of silicone lubricant in these tracks right here helps it slide. So just a little tip there for that connector. And of course the other connector right there. That one's pretty easy. Anyways, with those removed, this fastener that was held on through the coolant overflow tank, that is also holding on this shield for the fan. So there is another fastener. We are going to be taking off this shield, or if you choose to, you can just undo, let's see, this fastener right here on the radiator. If you remove this fastener, that will enable you to move the shroud and just kind of push it forward. If you're just replacing the radiator, that'd probably be a good idea, but I am going further, as you know, replacing the crank seal, and I'm going to need the room in this area, so I'm just going to completely remove mine. So I'm going to undo this top fastener, then I'll show you where just the other one is underneath. All right guys, so with this fastener removed, you can see that I can now kind of push this up and move it out of the way. Oh, and by the way, look, this looks to be the original radiator. By the way, if you want to see the crack, there it is right there. That is the crack in my radiator. Kind of a small crack, but it definitely was leaking. But anyways, if you're just removing the radiator, you can just undo these two top bolts and then kind of push this up and move it over. But as I said, I am doing more work on this truck, so I'm going to kind of put this back over there, and then let me show you underneath the truck. Underneath the truck, we also have this electrical connector right here, so you're definitely going to want to undo that. And actually, mine looks to be free if I just undo that electrical connector here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I think other model years, they may have other fasteners. I think maybe the 05s and above may have their fan shroud may be connected in like two pieces. So your model year might differ slightly, but this is how my 03 is. All right, with that electrical connector disconnected, I have now moved the fan shroud forward. It's just kind of resting on top of the fan right now, just gently resting there. Look at this, by the way. What do you think? This could be the original radiator from 2003. I think this truck currently has 204,000 miles on it, and there is the crack in the radiator. Replacing, that's pretty good. A 2003 and it's 2024, so that is 21 years old, 203,000 miles. That one is pretty good. Now, I think just one more thing we need to undo to get this radiator out is we need to undo the power steering cooler right here. It's just held on by two 13mm bolts. So we'll undo those and then just kind of let that gently hang down there, and then we should be able to give it a go and try to just lift up this radiator out of the truck. Alright guys, now that we have the power steering cooler just kind of resting on the ground right there, it is disconnected from the radiator. Now what we are going to do is we are going to try to lift this radiator just straight up. So we'll give it a go. Hopefully it all works out. Looks like it's, oh, you know what? I did forget something. There are actually two more fasteners. There is, you can see one straight in there, that's holding the radiator in. And then of course the same on this side, one right in there. So you need to undo those fasteners. Oh, and then I just found another thing. Man, we're jumping ahead of ourselves here. Also need to undo the lower radiator hose, which is right there, just another clamp. And then of course to the engine block right there, we need to undo that clamp as well to undo this lower radiator hose. I am replacing my radiator hoses, by the way. I bet these are original, you know, since the radiator is original. I do have OEM radiator hoses, Mopar OEM ones that are going on here. There we go. Now let's undo it from the engine block. Alright guys, just a pointer if you are removing your full fan shroud. This wiring harness to that fan clutch runs through this whole fan shroud. It runs behind here, and then the clip just comes out of here. This is two separate pieces to this fan shroud. I just got a trim removal tool and I removed these plastic clips right here. And then also there is another harness clip right here that you need to remove. And in order to get this wiring out for the harness, you undo those clips, what I just said, those two of them, and then this will pull right up, and then you can see right here, this is the channel it goes in. And once you have this piece disconnected from it, it will release the wiring harness. So if you are just doing the radiator, then well, you can just do the reverse of removal at this point with your new radiator. But as I said, I am continuing this lovely project